"Get out of my lobby. This place is not for the likes of you." The words were not uttered casually, they were delivered like policy, loud, firm, and rehearsed. At 65, one thinks one has seen it all. Wars, inflation, rising and falling prices, political upheavals, and shattered dreams. But there are days, there are moments, seemingly ordinary, that become turning points that make an entire system tremble. It was a mild Sunday afternoon in late May, just before Memorial Day. The Seattle sun was no longer harsh, casting a light layer of gold on the windows of the Coleman Grand Hotel, a place that everyone thought was luxurious, classy, and proper. But proper? For whom? A woman, black, middle-aged, walked into the hotel lobby. She wore a white button-down shirt, plain jeans, and clean but dated New Balance sneakers. She was dragging a silver Samsonite suitcase and checking rooms on her cell phone. The receptionist raised an eyebrow. The manager looked up from her screen. Then she walked up to the reception desk like any other guest and said softly, "Hello, I'm Angela Coleman. I have a reservation for the Platinum Penthouse." There was a silence that seemed to last a minute. And then, the night shift manager, Bradley Vance, about 40, neatly combed hair, cold voice like steel, replied, "Ma'am, this penthouse is reserved for VIP guests only." No confirmation number asked, no paperwork checked, just a suspicious look as if he had just smelled trouble from an untrustworthy stranger. Angela kept her voice calm. "Yes, I know. I own this hotel." Someone snickered. The young receptionist, Lindsay, smacked her lips. Kyle, the receptionist, glanced at her, then back at the executive suite sign. No one believed what she said. And so, Angela's credit card was taken from her without permission. Security was called. On the live stream of a guest named Margaret Lynn, a 66-year-old woman from Amarillo, Texas, the image of a black woman being treated like a crook was clearly shown. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said. "I just came to check in."
Those of us who lived through Jim Crow, who saw the whites-only signs, knew the feeling. The unspoken humiliation. No baton, no sniffer dog, just a suspicious look, enough to take your breath away. Angela didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just quietly took out her phone and called her personal assistant. "Monica, activate code 117, emergency." Within minutes, Angela's internal support team had accessed the camera, checked the reservation code, and activated remote access to the admin system. But the people standing before her, Bradley, Lindsay, Kyle, were still smiling faintly, still shaking their heads. "Security will escort you out if you don't leave, ma'am." And then a voice rang out from behind. "Wait a minute, I know her." It was Frank Ruiz, a 64-year-old doorman and Navy veteran who had been at the hotel since it opened. He stepped forward, his voice steady. "That's Mrs. Coleman. She's the owner, and you're all making a big mistake." No one listened. No one stopped. Nearby guests began to gather. A group of young people took out their phones to film. Margaret Lynn and her husband, Sam, live-streamed on their personal Facebook page, saying, "Folks, this is happening right now in a hotel we paid $400 a night for. Look how they treat her." Livestream reached 20,000 views in 15 minutes. Angela held her head high. "I have been silent long enough." She pulled out her phone and opened an internal application, one that only senior management had access to. In a few taps, she sent the command: "Suspended Bradley Vance, night shift manager. Fired Lindsay Carter and Kyle Metha, receptionists. Lock down internal access immediately. Notice to all employees, anti-racism policy is being implemented immediately." A wave of silence spread through the hall. Then a round of applause began, from the 16-year-old girl filming TikTok in the waiting room, and spread to each guest. Angela turned to Frank, smiling. "Frank,
I need someone who really understands people to head up the service department. Are you ready?" Frank nodded, speechless with emotion. That day, a woman in sneakers didn't just reclaim her dignity. She planted the first seeds of a storm of change. And the most miraculous thing wasn't that she had power. It was that she used it at the right time, in the right way, and without getting angry. But this is just the beginning. There are people who will say, well, don't make a big deal out of it. But if you've lived through a time when a black woman couldn't sit in a restaurant, couldn't enter the front door of a hotel, you understand, silence is never the answer. For Angela Coleman, the humiliation she suffered was more than personal. It was emblematic of a deeper, festering scourge in the service industry, one that seemed to have faded after the civil rights era, but is actually still there, just more subtle. That evening, Margaret Lynn's live video reached nearly 1 million views within hours. People shared, commented, wrote letters. Some VIPs canceled. Some shareholders demanded explanations. But while the media was in turmoil outside, inside the hotel, Angela kept her composure. She sat in the executive conference room with her assistant Monica and her personal lawyer, planning a comprehensive overhaul. She said, "I don't want to blame. I want to change at the root." And so, 3 things were set in motion that very night. Audit of all customer complaints for the past 3 years, especially those complaints that are ignored or unresponsive. Hold a meeting with all employees the next morning, with the board of directors participating via Zoom. Set up an internal hotline where all employees can report discriminatory behavior without fear of retaliation. Someone in the room advised her to keep quiet and wait for public opinion to die down, but she just shook her head. "I didn't build Horizon to hide mistakes. I built it to do the right thing, even when no one is looking." And so, 7 a.m. the next morning, in the ground floor hall, more than 200 employees were present. Some were wearing suits. Some were still wearing their uniforms from last night's shift. But no one knew today would be a day they would never forget. Angela stepped onto the stage. The lights fell on her face, not with anger, but with the sadness of a mother, a leader, watching her home rot without knowing. "I am the founder of Horizon. I have mopped floors, washed dishes, worked the night shift. I built this place so that everyone, regardless of color, nationality, or status, would be greeted with a genuine smile. But yesterday, Horizon betrayed me." The hall was silent. "Not because I'm a CEO, but because I'm a black woman in jeans. And you looked at me as a threat, not a guest." Some employees bowed their heads. Some had tears in their eyes. The receptionist, who had been on the job for only 2 months, raised her hand tremblingly. I didn't know it was that bad." Angela smiled gently. "It is because you do not know that we need to change." And then she announced unprecedented changes. All employees must participate in unconscious bias training, lasting 6 weeks. 20% pay increase for frontline staff, like bellhops, receptionists, and housekeeping staff, because they are the face of hospitality. Establishment of Equity and Culture Committee, where representatives from all races, ages, and genders are present to monitor internal behavior. And she didn't stop there. Angela returned to her office and picked up the phone to call Frank Ruiz, the doorman who had defended her yesterday. "Frank," she said, "do you want to be head of customer service?" Frank was silent. His voice trembled like an old man who had just been thanked by his children and grandchildren. "I think I'm too old, Mrs. Coleman." "No," she replied, "it is because you are old. I believe you understand people better than anyone else." During the first week, Frank and Monica started review each old complaint, meet every night shift worker who was ignored, every cleaning lady who was insulted by drunk customers. But now, no more acquaintances are covered up. Horizon Grand, the name that used to be a source of pride, is now facing a bitter truth, but also an opportunity. A chance to do it again. A chance to prove not every mistake is a lost opportunity, but one must know how to take responsibility. And it was during that period that Angela launched a project called Horizon Forward, a national hotel industry reform initiative starting from the very place she was humiliated. The media started reporting it. CNN, MSNBC, and even the Dallas Morning News wrote about Black CEO demands justice in her own hotel. Texans began writing thank you letters. One said, "Angela, I am a former Lubbock police officer. Your story made me rethink things I used to overlook."
And just like that, she became an icon. Not by screaming, but by silent but decisive action. But big changes always come with opposition. Not everyone was on board. And in the shadows, some were secretly plotting to take her down. An undercover investigation, an internal conspiracy, and someone on the board, an old friend, is preparing a backstabbing. The story is not over yet, because true justice is more than an apology. In Texas, they say, when you cut down a big tree, the hidden snakes also start crawling out of the holes. Angela Coleman dared to take an axe and chop straight into the rotten tree of discrimination. But little did she know, the snakes in the dark had been waiting for her for a long time. While Angela is focusing on reform, from staff training to policy changes, on the top floor, a secret meeting took place, hosted by none other than James Whitmore, a longtime member of the board of directors, whom Angela once considered an uncle. But James didn't like the way she worked. For him, Horizon was a place to make money, not a place to make a revolution. "She's driving away our traditional customers," James said in a private call with two major shareholders from California. "Some kind of discriminatory policy. It's all PR, but it's costing us money." And then the plan began. They hired a team. A private detective investigates Angela's personal life and finances. Place a former employee, who had been warned many times, back into Horizon Grand to work as an internal audit volunteer. And especially, lure a reporter from a tabloid newspaper into a headline to smear her past.
One Thursday afternoon, Monica, her personal assistant, walked into the office, her face pale. "There's a problem, Mrs. Coleman." In her hand was a printout of that morning's newspaper article. CEO Angela Coleman concealed shady investments, violating business ethics? The article had no real evidence. It was just rumors, a few obscure documents, but it was enough to get the media buzzing and investors skeptical. Angela looked at the article, not angry. She just sighed. "James," she said softly, "it was you who talked me into this business." Monica asked, "Do you want to sue?" "No," Angela replied. "We will answer with the truth." In 48 hours, Angela organized an emergency press conference at the Horizon Grand lobby. The media swarmed in like a swarm of bees. On stage, she stood firm, wearing a navy blue suit, the color of the sky of hope. "I'm not perfect, but I'm transparent. Every expense, every business decision I make is audited and legally certified." And then she went public, complete personal financial records, from bank accounts to investment portfolios, something few CEOs dare to do. The press was stunned. Analysts praised it. Some called it an unprecedented bold move in the hotel industry. But she did more than that. Angela announced, "We will increase employee welfare budget by 25% and sponsor scholarships for employees' children to study at university in the service industry."
and especially launching the Second Chance program, creating job opportunities for people with criminal pasts who have reformed.
She said, "I grew up in the suburbs of Atlanta. My mom was a maid, my dad died early. If it weren't for someone who gave me that first chance, I wouldn't be standing here today." She not only defended her honor, she turned the attack into a vivid moral lesson, makes people cannot help but think. That night, in his dark office, James Whitmore sat watching a clip of Angela's speech. He knew this battle was lost. The board of directors convened a special meeting. James was asked to withdraw due to conflict of interest. The conference also agreed to increase Angela's autonomy, making her the only CEO with veto power over personnel policies. An unprecedented turnaround in Horizon history. Within 2 weeks, the media turned in favor. One Texas newspaper wrote, "From target of attack to reshaper of the hospitality industry, Angela Coleman deserves respect." She wasn't complacent. She wasn't celebrating. She just said to Monica, "This is only chapter 3. There is much more to do." But there was one thing she didn't know. In the dark, a class action is quietly being prepared by former customers who were evicted from hotels for discriminatory behavior. They want to strike back. And among them was a man who used to be a senior employee at the Horizon Miami branch, a man who never forgave her for firing his wife 5 years ago. He's back with a team of lawyers and a goal: completely ruin Angela's career. But this time, Angela was ready.
What happens next? Is Horizon Forward being sabotaged? Will justice prevail over the hidden forces in the industry? In Texas, they say, "A good horse is not afraid of long distances. An honest man is not afraid of storms." Angela Coleman was that kind of person. But she didn't expect that this wave was not an ordinary wind. It was a legal storm, loud, fierce, and aimed straight at the heart of Horizon Grand. A group of clients, led by attorney James Hartley, filed a lawsuit class action to Washington State Court. Content? They accused Horizon Grand of systemic discrimination, refusing to serve minorities, and failing to act on complaints for years. Among the plaintiffs are Raymond Ellis, former Horizon Miami branch manager, who was fired by Angela for covering up for his wife's bullying of employees. And now he's back, with a vengeance, with a plan to take revenge through the legal system. But our grandparents said, reckoning about old grudges, there are only 2 outcomes. One is regret, the other is failure. Angela has no regrets. She chooses to face it. The court was packed. The media crowded outside the door. A trial iconic to the American hotel industry. The plaintiffs, 15 plaintiffs, mostly people of color, were denied rooms for unknown reasons. The defendant, Horizon Hospitality Group, headed by Angela, was calm, wearing an ash-gray suit, not a single wrinkle. Her lawyer is Rebecca Crane, a legal veteran who has beaten major oil and gas corporations. "We're not here to deny what's wrong. We're here to demonstrate that someone is fixing it, and has."
A series of witnesses were called. A Mexican couple were asked to prove they were real guests at the check-in counter. A former black employee recounts being asked by superiors to change my name to something easier to pronounce. No one denies that Horizon once had stains, but the problem is Angela came later. She inherited a corrupt system, and from day one, she set about overhauling. Attorney Hartley argued, "Reforms do not erase the damage. We demand compensation." But when it comes to the surprise witness, everything changes. The person who stepped up to the witness stand was Elena Ruiz, the former doorman who stood by Angela that fateful day in the hotel lobby. Elena said, "I saw her being humiliated like any other black guest, but she didn't run away.
She reformed. She fought, not for herself, but for us. Elena tells of training programs, of meetings where employees hear stories about fairness instead of just learning how to fold bed sheets. The whole courtroom was silent. The jury, mostly locals, listened. They saw the wrongs of the past, but also see clearly the sincerity of the present. The court ruled, Horizon Hospitality Group is forced to pay symbolic compensation, $1 per plaintiff. But no further penalties were imposed as the repair effort had been demonstrated to be successful. $1, not because they don't hurt, but because the entire lawsuit has achieved a higher goal, to force businesses to take responsibility and make fundamental changes. And Horizon, in Angela's hands, did just that. After the hearing, Angela did not leave through the back door. She stood and shook hands with each of the plaintiffs.
She said, "I am not asking for your forgiveness, but thank you. Because of you, this system has been forced to change, and so have I." Outside, a chilly Seattle drizzle began to fall lightly, but inside the minds of those present that day was a ray of hope. Horizon Grand, once a symbol of distinction, is now known as the beacon of justice. But the story is not over. An investigative television reporter who followed the entire affair discovered another hotel chain is using a more subtle but implicit discrimination policy through its internal scoring system. And this time, Angela can't go it alone. She needs allies, a coalition of Black CEOs, civil rights lawyers, and guests who have been offended. In our home state of Texas, we have a saying, "Don't wait until the storm has passed to rebuild your house. Put up your walls before the storm comes." And Angela Coleman, the small Black woman with the steely gaze, didn't just build a wall. She built a whole lighthouse, shining a light on the U.S. service industry, which has been in the dark for too long. 3 months after the historic trial, Horizon Hospitality Group is in the spotlight. Customer satisfaction rate increased by 24%. The number of minority employees promoted doubled. And the training program Respect First, initiated by Angela, is sought out by other large hotel groups to learn from. Elena Ruiz, from a doorman to now the general manager of Horizon Grand Seattle. Every morning, she personally greets each guest in Spanish and English with the same genuine smile.
But while Angela was busy expanding the internal equity model to other branches, a leaked message appeared on social media. It was an internal email from Goldmark Hotels, a rival luxury hotel chain, that showed they were secretly ranking guests according to financial and behavioral risk. But in reality, the system labels Black, brown, and Asian customers as potential troublemakers. Their data shows the darker your skin tone, the more likely you are to be turned down for a last-minute booking. Media explosion. Civil rights groups call for federal investigation. As for public opinion, it is expected that Angela will take the lead again, but this time, Angela was silent. She sat alone in her office, looking out the window at the sparkling reflection of Seattle's city lights on the lake. Her assistant, Nia, walked in with a proposal. A lot of Black CEOs, lawyers, equity investors, they wanted to form an anti-discrimination coalition in the hotel industry. They asked her to be the chair. Angela took the plan, but did not sign it. She said, "Nia, you know, I've been fighting all my life. I'm tired. I want to live. I want peace. I saved an empire. But now, who will save me?" That night, Angela drove out into the suburbs, to a hill overlooking the city. There, she met Sophie Lin again, the first guest who live-streamed the incident in the hotel lobby that day. Sophie, now a reporter for NPR, asks, "If you don't stand up, who will? If not today, when?"
There are moments in life, even though no one sees them, that decide everything. Angela did not answer Sophie, but 2 days later, on the big screen at the American Hotel Association conference in Houston, Texas, Angela's image appeared with the logo Horizon Forward. She declared, "We will not just do service. We will lead the change. Any hotel can choose to sell rooms, but we choose to give respect first." Horizon Forward was born as a national movement, training, auditing, and monitoring ethics in the service industry. In the first year, more than 700 hotels participated. More than 50,000 employees were retrained. And for the first time in history, major hotel companies have signed the Service Industry Equality Pledge. Dear Sir or Madam, at our age, we have seen too many things wrong, but there are still people like Angela standing up, not for themselves, but for the next generation. And the biggest lesson? Justice does not begin in a court of law. It starts at the front desk, in the way you look at others, in the way you choose to treat your guests, your employees, your own conscience. If one black woman in jeans and a t-shirt can change an industry, then each of us, whether retired or just quietly watching life from our Texas porch, can contribute a small bit of light. Because light, no matter how small, is stronger than any darkness.